What's up, guys? Joined by my special friend and guest, Greg Gabriel, here today again. We're going to be talking Bears. We're going to be talking trade deadline preview and some Bears Commanders preview. How you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for Bears football. It's been 2 weeks now. We've had this bye week. It's felt like an eternity, honestly. Yep. And I'm ready for Bears football again, basically.
Yeah, and they make us wait even longer now to later start.
That is the 4:25 or 3:25 start the afternoon. Yep. I kind of like those. I kind of like watching, being able to watch Red Zone for the noon games,
right,
and then gearing up for the Bears game in the afternoon. I kind of like that. So I'm not.
Well, when we were good, so like in 2006 and stuff, a lot of our games were the late afternoon game.
Mm-hmm.
So I got used to it then, because I don't, I go downtown. I'm going to say it's 45 miles from my house to Soldier Field.
Okay.
And I'm about 10, 12 miles north of the Bears facility. So I would leave for a noon kickoff. I would leave here about 8:45 and get there about 9:40.
Okay.
And, would park underneath the stadium. So the parking was never an issue. That was the advantages of working there. But, then we get a lot of work done before. But, when you don't have that situation where you got that real nice parking spot and stuff, it just makes it difficult to go down there.
Mm-hmm.
Because parking at that stadium is awful. That's why I'm kind of hoping that they end up with a stadium out in Arlington Heights, because there'll be ample parking.
I've kind of been rooting for Arlington the whole time. I just kind of want the new stadium to get done. I want us to at least have a retractable dome or a chance to have indoor football games.
I don't think that's going to happen, because
you don't think so?
No, I think that either way it's going to be a fully shut dome, and the
it's going to be a dome though. Yeah, I mean a dome. I'm happy with that way too. Okay,
it's going to be a dome. That's already.
I wanted at least an option of a dome, but a dome I'm 100% with.
Because you get a dome that you can open and close, it adds like another gazillion to the cost.
I think Kevin Warren mentioned he liked how Minnesota did it, how it looks like it's open because of all the windows and everything, but it's really closed. So I like that.
LA is technically open because that's just a cover that goes over it, almost like but it's not enclosed. That's why there was a game a few years ago I was watching, and they had to delay the game because of lightning. And they explained that, there's openings to that stadium that lightning can come in through. So they had to delay the game.
Morning, J2K. Yep. And so the news this morning that everybody wants to talk about is apparently Jaden Daniels did practice. I haven't seen much on this, but apparently the coach said something along the lines. This is what Ian Rappaport said. I have the tweet right here. He said, Jaden Daniels did wind up practicing today, and he, quote, really pushed it. They'll evaluate his status over the next 48 hours, but it could be determined Sunday. But it sounds like there is a chance he's going to play. Do you have a take on this?
I don't think there's any chance. First, I'll go back to 2021. And it's not that I don't want him to play. I think, and I'll get into my reasoning in a second. Go back to 2021. Justin Fields hurt his ribs. He missed 2 full games. It's a painful injury. It's a tough injury for a quarterback, part of which is because of the throwing motion, and you're using everything within your
lot of your core, yeah.
And you've got bruised rib cartilage. It's painful. Now, hey, they're going to numb the stuff up. There's no question about that. So that can alleviate some of the pain, but the problem is he takes a whack there, and he's going to get hit.
Especially against our defense.
Yeah. Now you're talking he might miss another 2 or 3 games down the road, depending on the severity of the hit. And I emphasize could. But what if you're a coach and you're a general manager? Do you want to say, okay, I'd rather hold them out one game and be safe than have them take the chance of missing 2 or 3 more?
I haven't looked at that yet. What's their schedule look like coming up?
I have no idea.
I'm going to pull that up real quick. So after the Bears, they have the Giants and then the Steelers and then a Thursday night against the Eagles. That's yeah, I would probably. What's their record right now?
That's 2 divisional games right there.
Yep, coming up. Well, 2 in 10 days, 11 days, because they play the Giants, then they play the Steelers, and then 4 days after the Steeler game,
right?
They play the Eagles.
So it's 2 divisional games. So you're gonna, and the divisional games are,
and after that they have the Cowboys too. So
right. So my thinking is, and see, this is the key to me. They have a portion of practice that's open to the media. Daniels was nowhere to be seen, and all of a sudden he practiced. So they brought him out, they did a stealth thing and they brought him out after all the media left. I just don't think it's going to happen. Could it? Yeah, obviously it could. I just think it doesn't make sense. I remember going back to, I thought, well, maybe there's a chance that Justin will play when he hurt his ribs. Mm-hmm. Wasn't going to happen. If you talk to orthopedics, they said it's you're doing more disservice to the player by not sitting him for that short period. So, we'll see. I get it. The fans want to see the matchup. Caleb's going home. Sweat's going home. Hell, it's like going home for DJ too. He went to the University of Maryland, which is a 10-minute, basically a stone's throw from the stadium.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Didn't even consider that. I know the Montez Sweat angle has been a bit overlooked, but it is almost exactly a year since we've traded for Montez Sweat too. And he's returning home to the team that drafted him, team that traded him away. So that's another big storyline for this week. And Montez hasn't really had a breakout game yet this year. Yet I still think he's played really well. He's gotten a ton of double and triple teams, and he did have that big forced fumble that helped us get a win, forced fumble. But as far as a game with 2+ sacks or one where he's really just wreaking havoc in the backfield, we haven't really seen it yet. I'd love to see that this weekend.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. The thing is he's played very, very steady. Yeah. Not spectacular. He doesn't have the game where where he has 2 sacks but he gets a bunch of games, or he gets games where he gets a bunch of pressures, gets hits on quarterback, creates havoc. I mean, and he's doing what he's supposed to do.
Yes, and he plays well against the run. He opens up opportunities for other players on that defensive line. So that's what's
no question.
But back
speaking of the defensive line, I think Jacob Martin will be on the 53. Now, whether he plays on Sunday, they have to make a decision by tomorrow on him. It's either he's brought on the 53 because his 3-week window is over. So he's brought up to the 53. He's sat down on injured reserve for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. And he's now been back at practice for 2 full weeks because he got in 3 full practices in London that week.
Right.
He wasn't limited at all. So he got in those 3 full practices, and then he had a full bye week, and then he's got in 3 practices this week at full. So I expect Jacob Martin to be activated. I would say probably
now technically
Daniel Hardy or maybe a defensive tackle isn't active
no,
this week.
I think the guy that goes is Robinson.
Well, he's already not been active, though.
Right.
Or you think he gets cut, you're saying?
I think he's the guy that comes off the roster.
Yeah, that's possible.
I have no idea how Hardy has been a real important part of the
special teams.
So
there's a chance, I think we probably make that up with defensive tackle because we've had Chris Williams and Byron Cowart both activated. With Zach Pickens returning this week, it's possible they could deactivate both of those guys and use one of that extra spot on the defensive end, because with Jacob Martin and Darrell Taylor both being able to come in, and rotate at defensive end, that opens up more opportunities to slide DeMarcus Walker inside as well.
No question about it.
So I think that's probably
could
what's
be
going to
Booker's the guy who ends up sitting.
happen. Booker could be inactive for a week or two as well.
Yeah,
I think they probably won't do that, but it's possible.
How that plays out, I'm not even going to attempt to guess on it because it's going to be, what the coach's final decision is. I just know that going back to May during OTAs before that they were really excited on what Martin brings to the table.
He was one of the top players that first week of training camp and then missed the entire rest of camp, never came back.
Right.
So we'll see what he can do once he gets here. But he's a guy, a lot of people compared him to Unique Ngakoue as well.
Right.
He's very similar as a pass rusher. And Darrell Taylor has given us a lot of that. But having another guy that's able to do that, you can never have too many pass rushers. So
they're both speed guys. Both of them are sub 4.6 guys who can fly off the edge. But Martin's best, I think, was in Houston with Lovey as the coordinator.
With Lovey, yeah. And that's in a 4-3 in the cover 2 as well.
So was this defense, same defense, like 4.5 sacks.
Yeah.
But he's always played in the rotation. It's not like he's had to be the man.
And I think Jacob Martin could really add just a little extra punch to this defensive line that we could use. I mean, it helps keep those other guys fresh, and hopefully would allow Montez Sweat to be out there on 3rd and longs more. And that's what I'm looking for. I feel like he's been out of the game too much.
No, I agree with you on that. And it's a guy, nobody brings it up, but he's got fresh legs. And those guys that are real fresh, that haven't had any hits yet, they can always make some big plays early on.
It looks fresh.
Yeah, that much more explosive than the other guys.
When you just come out fresh like that, you kind of just look explosive right off the bat. You can be a guy that just adds a spark to this defense. And I'd really love to see that. He could also light a fire under Darrell Taylor. If he starts coming in there and eating into Darrell Taylor's reps, that could also motivate Darrell Taylor to play better. Competition brings out the best. So I'm excited. I think I lost you for a second there, but I'm super.
Taylor's on the last, so they're both playing.
Yep, Taylor's in the last year of his deal, so he's on that final year of his contract. So he's trying to play to get re-signed. Jacob Martin, I believe we signed him to a 2-year deal, correct?
Did he? Maybe you're right on that.
Let me double check that. I thought it was a 2-year deal.
You might be right.
Might have been one. I haven't looked at his contract. No, it was a 1-year.
I know contract. He's not making a whole lot of money. He's making.
Yeah, it was just a 1-year contract, $1.15 million.
Yeah, he's just getting like a veteran minimum.
Another guy that needs to prove himself. They're both going to be battling for a chance to be re-signed here, because I do expect Poles to re-sign one of these pass rushers, whether it's Darrell Taylor or Jacob Martin. And then he
could do both. And Hardy's coming out of contract too. So in a way, it's a good thing because these guys are hungry to get some sort of extension.
100%.
But at the same time, they also know that is there for other teams to look at it. But in the case of Hardy, case of Martin, they got to play in the right scheme. And if it's not a scheme like this, they're not real fits.
Yeah. And that's a big problem in the NFL. You have to be in the right scheme. You have to have coaches that believe in you. And we have a couple questions from chat here. First, Jigsaw asked do we think that having a dome would be better for Caleb and the Bears? For me, I say yes. I just think the wind and all the problems it's caused in Chicago, like if we want to have consistent passing offenses, I do think Caleb has shown he has the arm to cut through the wind, but you're taking a little bit of the guessing game out of it if you have a dome and you're able to have stable weather conditions. I think it also can be more fun for the fans to watch games in winter. Like it's freaking cold there, man.
There's no question it's cold. And the wind is brutal. I've said it before, mentioned it, and I mentioned it on my regular podcast. Excuse me. Pep Hamilton, when his first time he was in the stadium, before he worked for the Bears, he was working for the 49ers, and they played a late season game here. And it wasn't snowing, but it was windy. So they put their game plan together all week. He said, we had to totally change the game plan after the warm-up because nobody could throw the football. And so it's like everything they wanted to do, they had to throw out the window. They ended up losing the game, I think, because they were put in that situation. And he said that the two toughest stadiums to play in the whole league are Chicago and Cleveland because they actually sit on the lake. People say, well, Buffalo's that stadium's 6-7 miles from the lake. You get the snow because it's right in the middle of the snow belt.
It's still cold up there, yeah.
You know what? It's colder here in Chicago than it is in Buffalo.
Really? Okay.
Not even It's so much colder here than it is in Buffalo. Buffalo just gets snow, and the thing that's funny about Buffalo is like where I grew up in the northern suburbs, we could get no snow or maybe an inch or two, and then you go south of the city and the snow belt, just the way the bands come off the lake, and they could get a foot.
That brings me to an interesting point because I saw something on Twitter because Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, right?
Right.
One of my favorite players in the draft.
Apparently, he was on TV tonight.
He was on he is on TV tonight. Be sure to watch that, guys, if you haven't seen Ashton Jeanty. But he was on some podcast or maybe a live stream of his own. But he was asked about teams he'd play for. And when they asked him about the Bears, his comment was, it's too cold there. That's all he said. But someone on Twitter is going around. I don't remember who it was, but I saw something that was like, it compared the weather in Boise, Idaho to Chicago, and it's only like an average 2 degrees warmer in Boise than it is Chicago. So I was like, but when you just said that stat that you think Buffalo or the Buffalo's colder in Chicago, I'm like, dang, maybe that's going to make Jenny not want to come here. Jenny, if somehow you're listening, Greg was just kidding. It's warm in Chicago. You'll love it here, man.
I'm going to say I've been to Boise 3 or 4 times, and it's relatively mild there.
Okay.
It gets colder here. They get some snow, but we don't get a lot of snow, but they get probably the same, maybe not even as much. They are up a little bit, but anytime I've been there, there's never been snow, and I've been there January, and it's been relatively mild weather. But 2 degrees is 2 degrees. He's going to go wherever the hell drafts him. So
that was my next point. I was going to say, like, people are overreacting to it. If Jenny got drafted here, if we did take him, I think he'd love being a Bear. We have probably one of the top 3 fan bases in the NFL. Easy. I say number 1, but obviously probably biased. But I think it's clear we have a top 3 fan base either way. There are a lot of crazy people in the fan base, but that's what happens when you have a large fan base. There's going to be that loud minority of fans that are just off their rocker. But I love our fan base. I think we have diehard fans that they care about football 365 days a year. They support this team.
No question about it. You've got 4 major league teams here, or 5? Is it 5? And the Bears are always number 1. Probably the Bears first, the Bulls second.
Yeah.
Then or the Cubs second.
Or the Cubs. It'd be Bulls or Cubs. It's close. Yeah.
Probably Cubs right now, not Bulls,
because the Bulls have just been down since Derrick Rose left. So it's been down. All right. Next question. This will bring us to the trade deadline talk. Do you think the Bears are going to trade for anyone at the trade deadline? Thanks, Brandon, for the question.
I believe that if there's any trade at all, it'll be relatively minor. The team is not in the same position it was in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, when he made the trade for Claypool, he had nothing at the receiver. And he overpaid for Claypool. He probably didn't have to give up a 2.
Yeah.
Then next year, both Sweat and Young were available because they were coming out of contract, and Washington was trying to clean house a little bit. So, they made the deal. They got the deal done for a 2nd-round pick. He's probably worth more than a second, but being that he was coming out of contract, you weren't going to pay more than that because you could have lost
had
him.
to pay him
You
too.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, theoretically, when you make the deal, it was a rental, even though they got a deal done within 24 to 48 hours, with him a contract extension. This year, like people keep bringing up Crosby. Well, there's several people from the Raiders, and one is Seymour, who just bought in to the Raiders like Tom Brady did. He said he ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
In the case of Crosby, his contract runs another 2 seasons after this year. So there's a big, huge cap hit if they were to trade him. He's the best player they got, offense or defense. And so I just and when you've got people like Seymour and Brady coming in as even though they're minor owners, they're going to have a voice. Can't see that one happening at all. And like I said, Seymour's already said it. And then the other one you hear is Myles Garrett. He's got 3 years left on his contract.
I don't see any way they'd trade him.
Yeah, not going to happen. And first of all, they just traded Cooper to Buffalo last week. Took a big cap hit on that one. You think they're going to wallop themselves again? And they might have to take a huge cap hit to get rid of Deshaun Watson.
And then, they can't really get rid of Deshaun Watson. His whole contract's guaranteed, and he's injured. But the biggest point that I think people are missing here that you brought up here was with these two teams, the Browns and Raiders, they both just traded away a wide receiver, right? Devontae Adams was traded. Amari Cooper was traded. That makes these guys think, the casual fans or just the average person will think, well, then they're going to trade Myles Garrett and they're going to trade Max Crosby. The difference is Myles Garrett is 28 years old. He's in the prime of his career, and he's the best player, and he's their franchise player. Same with Max Crosby, who's just 27. Both of those receivers, Devontae Adams is 32. Mari Cooper's 33. I'm not 100%.
Cooper's just 30 years old. I looked it up because
they're both 30 years old.
Right.
They're not 27 years old. They're not in the prime of their career, and they're guys who wanted out. Devontae Adams he wanted out completely. He did not want to be there anymore.
He was gonna have a hamstring until he got traded.
Yeah, he was healthy, missing games with a hamstring injury. That's a guy you don't want in your locker room.
A made-up hamstring injury.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as he got to New York, he's healthy. That Max Crosby's out there playing. He's out there hustling. Myles Garrett's out there playing. He's out there hustling.
There's no question.
They're not
These
trading.
These things are all pipe dreams. Like I said, if there's somebody that you can get, and I
there are a couple other players on the Browns, though. Zadarius Smith, the other defensive end, he's in the final year of his contract. He's 32. The defensive tackle, Quentin Jefferson, he's 31 in the final year of his deal. And the Browns are in salary cap issues heading into next year.
No question. But part of the equation is this, and it'll start on Sunday. You're going to elevate Jacob Martin off the injured reserve. What do these pass rushers do in the next couple games before the trade deadline? And if they think after these next 2 games that they still may need another pass rusher, then he may go out and try to get something. But my gut feeling is they're pretty happy with what they got right now. And Biggs is pretty close to what's going on. And, he said it, and I agree with him. He goes, I don't see anything happen. If anything, you're going to be selling.
The problem is, though, so here's the thing. When you just look at Ryan Poles' history, the last 2 years, he's added to this team. If there's a chance to improve the team, he's going to take it. I don't think he's going to take as big of a swing this year for all the reasons you pointed out. But if a pass rusher or a veteran offensive lineman does become available for like a 5th or a 6th round pick, and he thinks they can improve this team or help this team, he's going to make that move. And I think Ryan Poles has proven that. But I agree with J2K, and I do not want to give up our first or either of our 2nd round picks in any trade. And that's why I would immediately, even if Myles Garrett or Max Crosby were available, you'd have to give up premium draft capital to get those guys. And I love going into next year with a first and 2 seconds. And to me, I wouldn't trade that Panthers pick for almost anything. Now, obviously, I can't say anything because if someone called with something crazy,
it's a lock top 5 in the second round.
Yeah, it's going to be a top 5 pick in the second round, and that's a top 40 pick, and that's where you get a guy who's usually a first round player.
Yeah, he's going to be a first rounder on your board because everybody, I call these guys 20 to 40 guys.
Yep.
You got a group of players, relatively the same value. It's how the team drafting them values them. How do they fit within their scheme, etc. So you're going to get a guy that, let's say they're picking 35, 36 with that pick. You're going to probably get a guy that's ranked somewhere around 22, 23 on their board.
Okay.
That's just the way it works. It happens because no two draft boards are alike.
And with the way next year's draft shaping out, that's going to be a defensive end, an offensive tackle, or an interior offensive lineman. But there's a lot of talent.
Defensive tackle too. I mean, I just think there's going to be one defensive lineman and 2 offensive linemen with those first 3 picks. That's my own guess. I'm guessing right now.
I feel like that's how you improve this team, and that's how you really continue building this team. So that I'm 100% with that. I do not want to give up any of the premium picks, but if there's a guy who's not going to cost a lot and Ryan Poles thinks could help this team the rest of the season or even into next season, because there are a couple of guys who have deals that run into next year as well. And if he trades for one of those guys, then you have him for 2 years. And I'd love to see that. What is your thought on this, though? Okay. The Nate Davis trade rumors. Do you think I addressed it a little bit yesterday? What I said about it was this. Okay. First off, no one's given us anything of value for Nate Davis. That's a fact. We're not getting anything.
You pay them. You might have to give them a draft pick to take them off your hands.
Well, here's the thing. I thought it's possible maybe a team or two looks at Nate Davis's tape from Tennessee and says, this is a guy we think we could fix. And the good news is the way Ryan Poles structured that contract is teams wouldn't be super scared to take him on because he has no guaranteed money next year. They could cut him next year no matter what. So all they would be taking on.
There's still $2 million cap. Let's say stay with the Bears this year. There's $2 million that carries over to next year because it's the remaining proration.
But you still save 9 of the 11 million though. You're saving 90% of it.
But if you cut him today now,
this year's already paid.
You've got a salary cap issue now. Technically, it's not going to look that big because it's already figured into the cap because he's on your roster. So you've already, but that extra $2 million that would come, that's on the books next year, that accelerates into this year. And they only got $7.5 million left.
If we somehow get a team to trade him, though, they take on that cap hit. And that's where
you could get a situation where say, hey, we'll take them off your hands, but you're going to pay half the salary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And the season's almost halfway over anyway. So I could see that being a thing where we could
came out. I did the math the other day looking at that salary. It's like, and I'm going to be off a little bit, but round figure, he makes about $450K a week because you're getting paid 18 times during the year.
Yep.
You get 17 games in the bye week.
Yep. So, I mean, and that's where if a team would take him, that would save us some money. I don't know if it's very likely, but that's the only guy I could really see getting traded. We've already discussed Khalil Herbert before, and I think we're in agreement. He just has more value as a backup running back to us than he does on the trade market right now because no one's given more than probably a 6th-round pick for him. And it's not worth
6th or 7th because he's a rental. He's a free agent after this year. So you're not going to get, and he's a running back. You're not going to get much.
And next year, running back.
Waldron likes Homer. Homer actually had his most productive season as a positional player in Seattle under Waldron.
Yep. He was a good 3rd down running back and special team.
and is a pretty good receiver, actually.
Yep. And
So
pass blocker.
he opened his 21-day window to practice this week. So it ends right up at that trade deadline. So
that is interesting.
Yeah,
maybe we'll take a pick. I mean,
that's just the one rent. When I saw they opened up the window for him, I said, this is interesting, because I've thought all along that if the kid, the rookie free agent from Howard had not gotten hurt, that kid was making the team, and Herbert would have been gone. And so now, if there's this affection for, because Homer gives you something on specials where Herbert gives you a return guy, kickoff return, not punts.
Yeah.
Gives you a return guy, but he gives you nothing else on special teams. They might say, I'll take the 6th or I'll take the 7th.
Yeah, because Homer's a 4-team special teamer. I could see it now that you mentioned that, because I did see he returned to practice, Travis Homer, and they do like his special teams ability. We saw him get snaps early in the season on third downs too. Man, I could see it, because Khalil Herbert really hasn't done anything, and at this point, you're just going to lose him at the end of the year. You're keeping him to be a backup in case of an injury, but at that point, we still have Travis Homer in emergency situation. Velus Jones didn't look awesome at running, or didn't look awful at running back either. So
that's another name that you could see shipped out too. Yeah. I mean,
I don't. You think so? I mean, yeah. If they get another trade offer for Velus Jones this time, he could be shipped out. I could see it, because he's fumbled away his opportunity.
He hasn't been active since he flubbed that opening kickoff.
Oh man, he hasn't. Yeah, it's been bad, and that was, they had so much faith in him, and they gave him that chance, and that kickoff was awful. I keep confusing awful and awesome, but awful, right through his hands, off his foot, kicked it.
I mean, it was a good kick. He positioned himself well. He just misplayed it, and there's no excuse for that. You're a freaking pro.
Yep. Oh man, it's just
goodbye. You make that mistake in Pop Warner. You don't make it in the NFL.
And he's made it too many times now, and I hated to see it for the guy, because I loved to root for him. I thought he was a good guy. He had a good head on his shoulder, and he has talent. He's really good with the ball in his hands, but if you can't hold on to the ball, and the main reason you were drafted is for special teams, and you're doing nothing but hurting the team on special teams.
Oh, I know.
It sucks. I would have liked to see him keep returning kicks, because the biggest thing to me was, though, when I watched Velus Jones tape in college and studied him, one of the biggest stats that stood out: 0 muffed punts at Tennessee, 0 muffed kicks. He didn't do it. And he got to the NFL, and it was just like the lights were just a little bit too bright for him. And I hate to see it.
And the pressure, you do it once, and now there's a pressure to not do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens?
It gets in his head.
And you just keep doing it.
It just gets in his head.
He's become his own worst enemy. To get back to Herbert, it's what's wrong with Herbert is there's no question he's a very, very good runner.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 2 things he can't do that are important in this offense.
Pass block.
You're not sure he's going to catch the ball. That's 50-50, if that. And he can't block worth a shit. So you can't trust him on pass play. So when he's in the game, it's like, okay, we're going to run because he's in the game. Otherwise, why would he be there?
Yep. And if it's not a run, it's going to be a real short screen where they just kind of toss it to him. And he's had success on a couple of those screen plays before. But you're right. He's just, his receiving skills and his pass blocking skills just aren't where they need to be to operate in this offense, because you're just showing your hand when he's on the field. And when he does try to pass block, I think he's tried harder, but he gets ran over. It's just not there. He's not stopping anybody. I haven't seen much improvement.
It's not a hard thing to do. It's a want to more than anything else. Yeah, if you want to be a good pass blocker, you will be a good pass blocker. Now, you might not have the physical traits to do it, but if you look at him physically, he's well built, he's strong. There isn't any reason why he isn't a good pass blocker other than he doesn't want to be because he doesn't work at it hard enough.
I think the size has some. I think for the smaller guys, it's just harder. I mean, the NFL pass rushers are such freaks now, and it's something watching other teams in the NFL. I've earned a respect for really good pass blockers at running back, and I've seen David Montgomery doing it, and we saw him do it here, but he's continued to do it in Detroit, and he'll just give up his entire body.
Yeah, you got to stand in, you got to face up.
He still gets ran
and
over.
you got to take the hit.
And he's bigger than, and same with Bijan Robinson. Bijan is a big dude, and he's putting his whole body on the line and getting ran over, but protecting Kirk Cousins, buying him those extra 2 to 3 seconds. And that's key. And that's something Herbert will try to do the same thing I've seen, but he just isn't as big as some of those other guys. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I've seen him try. I have seen him try, but he gets ran over. But Bijan's amazing. Yeah, Ty just said it, man. Bijan's probably the best pass blocking back in the NFL. And him and Roschon were in the same backfield at Texas, and Roschon is such a awesome pass blocking running back.
That's one of the strongest parts of his game.
Mm-hmm. And then Swift's pretty good too. I think Swift can pass block. He's undersized, but Swift will put it out there. But he's also so good at receiving that he can just slip out of the backfield and just toss it to him, and that's even more.
He's a space. I call guys like him space players.
Yep.
You get him in any kind of space, and something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Texas arrogance equals great at pass blocking. I mean, hey, they're still killing it. They lost last week, but that's a team. That team's stacked. I wanted to see Arch Manning lead him down the field when he got out there, but he didn't do it. But we'll get that.
We'll get back. They got a tough game. Speaking of that, they got a tough game this week.
Who they play this week?
They play at Vandy. Vandy just beat Bama at Vandy. They got a good young coach who's recruiting a lot better. And the guys there have bought into his program. I know a guy used to be on the staff there, and he said these kids just play their asses off. And they felt it wasn't a fluke that they beat Bama a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. I mean there's been a lot of. Q says Quinn Ewers ruined his draft stock. I thought that was just an awesome game, and I think there's been a lot of big time college football matchups, and there's some more this weekend. If you guys didn't see Illini come in with that big win against Michigan last week,
I love that.
They play Oregon this week, right? Is that this week? Oh my goodness!
I think that's out there though, isn't it? Women, I have the college schedule out here somewhere.
I don't have it up. I meant to pull it up, but I didn't.
Let me see here.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they play Oregon tomorrow at 2:30 in Oregon.
2:30. Then it's down here in Champaign.
It says it's at Oregon. It looks like.
Oh, it is it is at Oregon. Yep. 2:30. Wow, they're playing that at 12:30 West Coast time. I've been to games in Eugene. Woo. It's a nice place to go to a game.
That's going to be a wild one, man. That's going to be wild. Illini looks pretty good. I haven't seen them look this good since the Rashard Mendenhall year. You remember that year?
Yep.
They went to the
Owen goes to he goes to all the home games, but he's coaching high school here, so I don't think he can go to the road games because he's not going to get out. He's not going to coach high school tonight and be out in Oregon by kickoff tomorrow. That's just not going to happen.
100%.
Because he's coaching the line. Jason McKee is the head coach at Carmel Catholic in Mundelein, and Owen's got the offensive line, and there's a couple other ex-Bears on that staff too.
Yep, 100%. And I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk about with this week was, to me, it really doesn't matter if Jaden Daniels plays or not. I think it comes down to the Bears just need to win this game. We're a 4-2 football team, and if Jaden doesn't play, look, we're 0-2 against Marcus Mariota. So it's not like that's just a walk in the park either. We still have to take care of business. And
Marcus
Marcus
Mariota's a vet. He's been in the
he,
league for a while now.
he was picked at the exact same spot Jaden Daniels was,
That's right.
number 2 overall.
It's not that, this isn't some chump coming off the bench to play. He's got some skills. He got drafted that high for a reason. He just never lived up to all that ability. But what they're doing in Washington offensively,
they're running a scheme
really
that
plays to his. They're playing
too.
a college offense. They're playing to his skill set.
Yep. They have I believe it's somewhere around 70% of their plays go to either the first read or a screen pass. And that's by most in the NFL by far. And that's a college
pretty
style
much
offense.
a half field read.
They're doing the half field reads, either left or right. So I've seen people with some fake charts making it look like Jaden only throws to one side, but that's really what they do. But they do it to both sides of the field. But on each certain play, most of the time he's only reading half the field.
Yeah, and he's got 1 and 2. He's never going to 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 1, 2, either there's your main guy or you dump it off. If those aren't there, you run. That's it. Like his third is run. Take off.
That's where the big difference is. Now, obviously, Jaden has been very, very successful at what they're asking him to do. But at the same time, we want to compare him to Caleb. Caleb's being asked to do a lot more than Jaden Daniels is being asked to do.
Yep.
The offense is a lot more difficult. It's a full field read. He's got to go through his progressions, and you see it. You've seen it in the
He's
last
making the
3
checks
weeks.
at the line. He's identifying blitzers. He's rerouting the wide receivers, getting guys in place. We're just running the whole offense.
Right. No, he's doing a fantastic job.
Dobbsy made a comment about how hard our upcoming schedule is. And while I agree, we're getting to the meat of this schedule, I still think we have a big opportunity over these next 3 games to really put us in a great position before we start taking on those division games. We have the Commanders this week.
They got a chance to be 7-2 going in before they start the division.
Commanders, Cardinals, and Patriots. And the Commanders are the best team of the bunch. Cardinals are probably second, but to me, I've watched the Cardinals a few times this year. They look like one of the most inconsistent teams in the NFL.
Oh,
you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get with them.
And the Patriots are fighting
down there with
the Panthers for the worst team in the league.
Now, I do like Drake May. I think Drake May is a guy who I actually had him ranked higher than Jaden Daniels in my pre-draft evaluations. I had Drake May as my number 2. And the biggest reason I didn't dislike anything about Jaden's skills, I said it multiple times. The way he plays terrifies me. I watched it at LSU, and I did not see him ever learn to protect himself. And I thought that as an NFL, if I was an NFL GM, it would terrify me because I'd be like, this guy's going to get himself killed on the football field, and I don't want that. I've seen him he got body slammed multiple times where he'd be running and he would jump into a linebacker's arms and then get thrown onto the ground. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like,
you gotta like his mentality, though.
Like, at protecting himself. I've seen him do a little bit better in the NFL, but he's still taking a lot of unnecessary hits, and I'm like, that scares me. He just doesn't have the frame for it, if you ask me.
No, he's got a very narrow frame, very lean frame.
And that's why, but the Patriots are a very beatable team. I do like Drake May, and he's able to make some special throws, but the Patriots that's a team we should beat. We're at that period of time, I think, now where we beat those teams that we should beat.
That shouldn't even be a beat. That should be a blowout.
Yep.
And I'll tell you right now that, and Belichick's not helping. He's stirring the pot a little bit, because the head coach, Mayo, calls out his team, tells them that they're not tough and they're quitters and all this. And so right away, Belichick sticks up for the players. So there's some shit going on there. And it's not going to get any better.
Yep. Q and Ty are getting a little ahead of themselves. They're talking about the Seahawks and 49ers later in the season. And Q says Seahawks and 49ers can get this ass whooping too. But I mean, listen, I could see it, but both of those are very good teams. But I'm not getting that far ahead of ourselves because after these 3 games, this is where we really have to take care of business. I think Greg said 7-3, and 7-3 would be
7-2.
amazing.
There'd be 7-2
Yeah,
if you win
7-2.
the next
Sorry.
3.
Yeah, I read the chat. Chat said I read
Yep.
Rondo's 7-3, but 6-3 would be. I'd still be happy at 6-3 if we can win 2 of these next 3 before we go into the division 3, just straight final season bloodbath against the division. If we can go into that at 7-3, we have ourselves a chance. And we haven't got a lot of help from the NFC North yet, but the Vikings finally lost last night. Or their second loss now.
Second loss.
They're coming down a little bit now.
They're coming back to reality, and they may have lost their left tackle.
Oh, and I'll say before that, I don't know. Did you watch that game?
I watched some of it, but the Darisaw got hurt near the end of the second last play of the first half.
Did you see the rep before early in the game where Verse pushed Darisaw 5 yards off? Jared Verse came up to him, hit him. Darisaw went flying back, and Darisaw is one of the best left tackles in football. He's at least top 8. And Jared Verse, the rookie, who was my favorite defensive end all along this year, came out and killed him. I thought that was beautiful. Man.
Well, Verse is really strong through his hips.
And
athletic. Comes in low. So he's got some pop, and he just used that bull rush and drove him back. And Darisaw has a tendency of getting tall at times. And that's what happens. You get tall and you get pushed back. But he got hurt. And
I didn't see the play he got hurt on. Knowledge is saying it looked like an MCL or ACL. I did not see that play.
Yeah, he was laying down for a while. He got up. He walked off, but he was having help.
I think I fell asleep.
They took him right into the locker room. I'm sure you're going to find out. I mean, they probably didn't get back to Minneapolis until 6 this morning. After playing a night game, so it'll probably be late today before you know what the injury actually was after they do an MRI. But he's going to be out for a while. I don't know if he's going to be out for the season, but he's going to be out for a while after that, and that's not going to help him.
Yeah.
But the guy that the freaking quarterback is playing out his ass.
100%. Hey, Verse doing Verse things last night. 100%. Q, I'm not answering your question. I'm not talking about injuries. We're knock on wood with that. I'm what's the word? Superstitious. I'm superstitious. Yeah. I don't like to talk about the health or the injuries of the team, but always hope for the best. And as far as both teams now, the Vikings of Lions, if that's real and Darisaw is going to be out, those are big hits to both of those teams because the Lions have already lost Hutchinson. Although I do expect them to add some kind of pass rusher before the trade deadline. There's too many guys out there, at least situational pass rushers. The Lions will probably add somebody.
But I mean, people thought they were going to add a Crosby or a Garrett. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to add either of those guys either. But I could see them adding an Azeez Ojulari or a Zadarius Smith or Josh Uche. There were a couple names out there of guys who probably going to get traded. Momo, I don't understand your question. Are you talking about on the Bears? Are there any other positions where you think the bench is better than the starter? Are you talking about on this team? I don't know about that one. I agree the Lions will make a move, but the NFC North is going to be up for grabs. I want to know who the Packers play this week. That's what I kind of want to look up is the Packers schedule because that's a team we want to take a couple of losses here. They beat the Texans. They play the Jags this weekend. And then they're going to
win that game.
And then they play the Lions.
Where's that game? In Green Bay or down in Jacksonville?
It's in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And then they play the Lions at home. And this is what I hate. I forgot about this. I remembered it earlier. But when we play the Packers in 4 weeks, they're going to be coming off a bye. They have 2 weeks to prepare for us for that game. They play the Jags and Lions, and then they have a bye week before they play us. I hate that because, honestly, Matt LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the NFL, in my opinion.
That game's here. That first game is here, right?
It is here, yep. But them having 2 weeks to prepare for it, I hate that. I really hate that. I can't say that
You know
enough.
what is what it is.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. That's another reason we got to take care of business over these next 3
That's
games.
right.
Though.
But you got to win. I feel they got to go 500 in the division.
You almost have to. You have to have a
and
shot.
last year they split with Minnesota, they split with Detroit, but they lost to Green Bay. You got to find a way to split with Green Bay.
Or if we can at least beat Detroit twice,
get in the playoffs.
Yeah, or if we could beat one of those other teams twice, we should have beat the Lions twice last year. We had them on the road.
No question.
Yeah, let them off the hook. But I mean, we got to beat the Packers. I think that's just one of the things that this team has not. It's been so long since we gotten over that hump, and I'm not talking about just beating them one time. Beating the Packers reliably, or at least competing with them, we haven't done that in a long, long time. Most of my life, pretty much.
I'll tell you what. Now, Love has not played very well.
I agree with that.
He's come back. I mean, he's turning the ball over. He's tentative. They don't have a very good wide receiver core. Their best guy, in my opinion, is Reed, second-year kid who's actually a Chicago kid.
Okay.
Yeah. But their offensive line is good. They can run the ball, and their defense has been really good.
Their defense. I mean, they have so many first-round picks on that defense. They should be good. But I think the biggest addition was my favorite safety from this year's free agency class. I really loved Xavier McKinney.
Yeah,
I hated that he went to the Packers, and he has played so well, not just in coverage, but also blitzing off the edge. Like, he's just been dynamite in that defense, and I hate that they added him.
And speaking of injuries, though, it would not surprise me to see Brisker and Gordon out this week.
Yeah, I think we'll find out today. If they don't practice today, they're missing the game.
Oh, if he's still in protocol, there's no way he plays.
Yeah,
today.
Well, if he cleared it today and practices, then he could play. But
Gordon had a hammy, and hammies
can linger.
They can.
We just saw Mike Evans. We just saw Mike Evans. He was coming through a hammy injury, and then he played in the game, and he pulled his hammy, and now he's out for probably 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh no, that's why you got to let the guy heal up.
Yep. So Kyler is one of the reasons I'm okay. I want Kyler to be 100% for sure, because Blackwell's played pretty well. And I do not want to be without Kyler for an extended period of time. The fact that we had the entire bye week, he had 2+ weeks after that London game, and he's still not back to practice yet. Even if he gets in one practice today, limited, I'm wanting to hold Kyler out. I don't want him re-injuring that hamstring. No. And then I saw questions about Brisker. A lot of people, why is Brisker still in the concussion protocol? And I think people forget, this is his second or third concussion since he's been in the NFL. It's not something. Sometimes when you have more than one, it takes a little bit longer to clear that concussion protocol.
Yeah, well, you've got to, and I don't know what the testing is that they do.
Yep.
But you got to come out of the testing clean, or they won't let you play. But speaking of that, Tua's back. He's cleared.
Yeah,
playing this week.
That's scary to me, man. He's playing this week. I was thinking about that. I read about it earlier that was the plan. But man, I'm scared for Tua, honestly.
You know what? I look at it this way. It's his body, it's his head, and he wants to play. You can't stop him.
I'm just terrified something awful is going to happen out there. I'm going to knock on wood. I don't like to jinx things. It's scary to me. And I was a guy who rooted for Tua. I'll admit, I play a lot of fantasy football, and I have Caleb Williams on almost every team. But I had a good strategy this year. Look, if you're drafting a rookie quarterback in fantasy, you got to pair him with a veteran quarterback early in the season. So I would go with either Baker Mayfield or Tua. And obviously, my teams I took Tua, those teams went bad because Tua went downhill. He scored like 5 points in the first few games. He didn't play well, and then that injury was just scary. And to me, the biggest thing with the Tua injury was that he's already been through so much, right? He's already And that hit was on him to me. It wasn't a big hit. He lowered his head into it. And
Right.
that showed to me that he still has no awareness or ability to protect himself on the football field. And that scares me, man. That scares
Didn't
me
he
a lot.
just go into the guy's gut? With
Yeah, it just right into it. Just right
yeah,
into
but
it.
I mean, it's like what I mean. He didn't go in. He didn't hit his leg, or it's like like a knee or something like that. That's hard. He
Yeah.
hit the guy's gut.
And it didn't even look like a bad hit. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was because, and that was the reason. If he would have just taken the hit, it wouldn't have been bad. But he lowered his head into it, and the force was from him lowering into the hit. And so to me, it was like this guy shouldn't even be on the football field. Like he's hurting himself, and now he's back just a few weeks later. That's scary to me.
Speaking of that, Swifty, because I've noticed it with the fines. They've done it now 2 weeks in a row. They first came out with the stuff that if you lead with your head, you're going to get fined, but they never got a running back. And there's always a lot of running backs that lead with their head and cause the collision. They've hit 2 running backs up in the last couple of weeks. And I think one was Saquon. And so it's, to me, it's kind of evening it out, and I'm glad that they're doing it. But the running backs have been getting away with a lot because of that, because it was almost like strictly a defensive fine. So I'm glad to see that it has evened out and that offensive players can get hit with it too.
It is. So, I mean, I think I saw one offensive player get fined last year. I remember seeing it on Twitter or something because everybody was making a big deal of it. But yeah, Dobbsy made a good point. Monty does it all the time. But if you guys haven't seen Monty lately, and this is what scares me, Monty is running like the best running back in the NFL. He's running like a madman possessed. He did get injured and a little banged up in the last game and didn't have great of a game, but he did come back.
He did come back, and he played all right after he came back.
Well, he still only had like 30 yards and no touchdown. He ended his streak of 8 straight games with a touchdown. But Monty's a madman right now. So I love Monty. He's probably one of the best running backs in the NFL. Do you guys have any final questions for Greg? Get them in now. Bears versus Commanders on Sunday. How do you think we play in that one, Greg? Do you have any predictions or anything for it?
I think they're going to win. It's scared. The bye week scares me a little bit. And I mentioned this Monday when I was talking about it. It's because of when I don't know if you listened to my other podcast. We had Jerry Azuma on, and we were talking about the bye weeks and how sometimes it can affect momentum. And in the Bears case, they were in really a good place momentum-wise, winning 3 in a row. Then they had a week off. How is that going to affect that momentum? And we're not going to know that until Sunday at kickoff.
Yep. And I think one thing that gives me a little bit of hope is, so I think we're 0-2 after the bye week, right? But the 2 teams we've played after Matt Eberflus's buys were teams that went to the NFC Championship game or Super Bowl. And we played both those teams very well. In his first season, we played the Eagles after the bye week. And if you guys remember that game, we played them close. That was a game most people expected us to get blown out. And Eberflus's defense did a great job against Jalen Hurts, shut him down in that game. And then last year, it was that Lions game that we had him on the ropes for 3 quarters after the bye, and we just let that game slip away in the 4th quarter. But if he can prepare them and come out, I have a little bit of faith that Matt Eberflus is pretty good at preparing this team during bye weeks. Hopefully, we're not going against a team that goes to the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship team this year. The Commanders they've started out the season hot, and I think there are people that believe they're capable of that. Hopefully not. We don't want to have that again after our bye, but I have some confidence that Eberflus can have this team ready to go, and then we can come out here and get another win, take care of business.
Caleb hasn't said much, but I have a feeling this game is real big for him. He's going home,
returning home.
He grew up. He wants to put on a show. And he's already talked about it. He said, I had to go out and get some tickets. I had to go buy some tickets. So he's got a lot of people there.
All right, let me see. There were a couple of questions. What did Q ask there? One guy you think we have the best chance to trade or trade for? I think
I don't, because it's usually.
What about trade?
Okay, we're a week and a half from the trade deadline, and the trade deadline the same day as election day. I mean, that's a freaking wild day.
It was. Q actually is a guy who tweeted out earlier. I retweeted. He said, "For most people, November 5th is election day. For me, it's trade deadline."
Who would have thought of Chase Claypool 2 years ago? Who would have thought of Sweat last year?
A little bit. We thought about Sweat a little bit last year.
Well, only the fact that, but I don't know if it was more Young than Sweat, if I recall.
Young definitely had a lot more media talk.
And so, a lot of times it's stuff that you don't know is going to happen, and it happens. The teams are talking about it, but the media doesn't know about it. And the stuff that you're seeing now is strictly fan talk. And I'm not trying to downgrade the fans, but it's fantasy football. And they think that, teams are going to trade Myles Garrett or Crosby. When it's not going to happen.
Yep. I don't think
I'd be shocked. And I watch. I mean, one of them will get traded and someone will come down on me. I don't care. But it's especially when you see their contracts. If they're in the last year of their contracts, then you could say maybe it's going to happen. Well, not when they got as much time left on their deals that they do.
Yeah. Another guy, I can't even say his name. Jaden Daniels practiced today. We talked a little bit about this. He says he'll be a game.
I'm not so sure he really did.
Yeah. Greg doesn't think he actually practiced. The second part of this question is, what about the game plan for defending Washington's offense would be different if Daniels or Mariota starts? And I would say basically not much. They're the same.
They're the same guy. They're both athletic guys.
So I don't think we change anything for that. No. We probably just prepare for Jaden either way, but also watch the tape from Mariota for last week to see if anything changed in the offense. But it looked pretty much like the same offense, and that's
right.
That kind of tells you something when Mariota can come in and run the offense as well.
Well, and then like I said earlier in the show, it plays to his skill set, that offense.
Mm-hmm. And then Momo asks, which aspects, special teams, defense, or offense will be most important winning this game on Sunday?
I hate to say this, but they all are. The offense got to come out. I'd love to see the offense on their first drive go down and score.
Yep. I would say probably most important for me would be offense, just because that's been the one that has the most to prove. Yes, they've played well recently, but we haven't seen a consistent offense here my whole life. So I want the offense to come out and do it again. I have faith that our defense is going to at least keep us in the game. I mean, that's what they've been
look
doing.
Look at it this way, Swifty, is that
a long time.
You're talking about LaFleur having 2 weeks to prepare. Well, Flus has had 2 weeks to prepare for this offense, for this college offense. And so, they spend last week, the coaches had Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. They worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But a bunch of them were probably working Thursday anyway. So, because that's what coaches do. They're grinders.
100%.
And I'm sure that a lot of them, even if they're doing it from home, they're doing a lot of work on them and what would work. Because then when you get in and start to put your game plan together, which you start to do Monday morning right away, and they break it up. It's not, you have a pass game coordinator, a run game coordinator on both sides of the ball. And so the run game guy is looking at what the Commanders do in the running game. The pass guy is obviously what they do in the passing game. But they got their own ideas to throw in with what Flus has and what Washington has, and go from there. And so they've had extra time to see it. I'm sure they all watched the game last Sunday, and then I think that gives the Bears a little bit of an advantage going into this game because they've had that extra time. Because it's a different offense than what they normally see week to week in the NFL because it's more college-based offense.
Yeah, 100%. And then final question, Dobbsy says this is a funny one, but does DJ get another 200 plus yards against Washington, or will another receiver shine? If I had to guess, I'm actually going to say this is Rome Odunze time this week. I expect a Rome breakout.
It's funny because Waldron kind of answered that on his presser on Thursday. So yesterday, it was kind of like, well,
I actually didn't listen to that one yet. Oops.
Well, he said it's like one week it's going to be this week, and another week it's going to be another guy. He goes, it depends what the other team is doing. And I thought going in to the last game that Keenan Allen was due for a big game because he had missed so much time, and because he hadn't been a part of the offense, that maybe Jacksonville wasn't going to be ready for him. And as it turned out, that's exactly what happened. But now, okay, they're saying, wait a minute, Keenan's back, so we got to make sure we got to do something to take away what he does, so that could free up Komet, could free up Rome. They're going to take care of DJ.
Yep.
But now obviously DJ had the big game last year against them. This group, meaning the Washington group, coaching staff, wasn't there for that game, but I'm sure they're going to see the tape, so they're going to try to stop him.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild one. I could see anyone on our offense coming through, and you said it. I think DJ Moore is still very capable, and Lewis pointed out as well, Keenan is going to have a rookie lined up on him, but that could also mean that he's getting extra safety or extra attention from the safety, and that could help open up Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, or DJ Moore. I think obviously when you play us, the first thing I would do playing this offense is try to take away DJ Moore and double team him. But part of the problem with that now is there's so many weapons, especially with Swift out of the backfield, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet starting to pick up. It's really hard to double team DJ Moore consistently. And that's what with Waldron moving everyone around. He's also got DJ actually matched up against linebackers a few times. So I love what Waldron's doing, and it could be anyone on this offense. And that's what I love about Waldron. And to the people who talked crap about Waldron early in the year, 2 weeks after the season, I'm talking thousands of comments about Clint Kubiak.
Gotta fire this guy.
We missed Clint Kubiak.
Yeah.
Waldron's the wrong guy. What is Kubiak doing now? And Waldron is
I tweeted out the same thing last week. And I said, well, he's got all these guys hurt. Well, hey, Carr hasn't been hurt all year.
They definitely have some.
They haven't done anything since week 2.
They haven't done. They look like a flash in the pan that came out 2 weeks and surprised people and then got punched in the mouth since then. So
yeah,
it'll be tough, but all we need is a win this weekend, guys. I got a new shirt, NFL Jam with Rome and Caleb on it.
Oh, where'd you get that?
Throwback to the NBA Jam. I got it on Fanatics. But we're looking for a Commanders win. Greg, as always, man, honor having you on the show. Anyone who tuned in late, make sure you rewind and watch. Me and Greg had some great football talk today, and we appreciate everybody who watches. And any final words, Greg?
No, just go Bears, and I'm very confident it's going to be a win on Sunday.
Confidence. I love to see it. Bear down, guys. I'm confident as well. I hope Jaden Daniels plays. I want to see a big-time matchup, and bear down.